Perfect. Now we are live, if I see this correctly. So welcome everyone who's joining and still joining. As I see, we're already a bunch of people participating. Thank you very much for taking the time on the Tuesday. The topic today is defining a unified namespace, especially going towards more insights and learnings from the field. That's why we have as well Stefan and Henning with me here. One thing before, you will see on the right side, there's a chat, right? So whenever you have a question right in between, make sure to post it, yeah, and I will moderate it into the conversation. If not, at the end with a time slot for Q&A, that's the last chance then where to put in some questions. Yeah, make sure to use it. We want to make it an interactive conversation. You will see that. Yeah, so don't be shy to post something. That's what we're all here for. And yeah, for this topic today, I brought two experts with me. So first one is Henning Heine from our partner MaibornWolff. Henning, so cool to have you here, making the time, especially with your whole background from the industry. Maybe you want to take a couple of seconds to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Danny. Yeah, my name is Henning. I'm smart factory expert at MaibornWolff. Joined MaibornWolff last year early, and before that, I worked a couple of years, 8 years in manufacturing, right on the shop floor, integrating stuff from PLC to ERP to the cloud, building applications for my colleagues on the shop floor, and in the last couple of years also building up the digital transformation initiative for the company I worked at. And that's basically the same what I do right now with my colleagues at MaibornWolff for other customers.
So great to have you, Henning. Thank you. And then let's jump over to Stefan. Stefan is our VP of product. And Stefan, maybe you want to take a second as well to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Yeah, super excited actually to spend this morning with all of you. I'm Stefan Hermann, VP Product at Cybus. As Danny said, I'm responsible for our product strategy. And my focus is on driving digitalization of manufacturing and co-creating the best paradigms for the industry of tomorrow together with our users.
Amazing. Thanks, Stefan. Last but not least, I'm Daniel Rybkowski. I'm managing partnerships at Cybus, and we're in close collaboration here with Stefan, with Henning, and other partners as well. So happy for everyone who joined now. Let's, without further ado, jump right into it. And I would like to start because in our pre-discussion, we jumped on what is actually unified namespace. There is a lot of content out there, thanks to a lot of contributors through the last 2 years, roughly, I would say. And I just want to take a short minute, not all too long, yeah, but to make sure we're all talking about the same topic. So basically, yeah, maybe Stefan, you can start sharing what is your understanding when we talk about a unified namespace.
Yeah, all right. So unified namespace is actually a concept for a unified structure for accessing data. It's a single source of truth for machine and production process data. It enables decoupling of data creation and data usage. And it's a structure that is adapted to the organization setup, for instance, following an ISA 95 standard. Yeah, maybe that's okay. Now, interested in your opinion, Henning.
From my point of view, the UNS is first and foremost a concept, and what it actually is for a specific company really depends on the company, how they build it and how they bring a UNS to life. And yeah, but from my personal experience, the UNS is a concept that helps to make data more easily accessible and to give shop floor data more context, to make it more valuable and to create information out of raw data, for example. And especially with one point you brought up, I think it's kind of confusing. The word single source of truth, I have a little bit of a problem with that because it's just a big promise. And what even is that, a single source of truth? So maybe that is the end goal, but for most companies, if they start out, you won't have a UNS as your single source of truth, I think.
Yeah, 100%. There are so many systems utilized so that typically it's impossible to access the data, and the unified namespace enables the organization actually to use the data then in the end. Yeah, so accessibility in the end.
Maybe let me throw in 1 or 2 slides, yeah, because we talked about this before as well. I'm a very visual person, yeah, and you can as well. So we asked before the question, what is it actually, and as well, like why do companies start actually with the unified namespace, yeah? And I think Henning, you were the one who said more or less, well, we are typically, we all agreed on this, but they're like typically all the siloed systems, yeah, which we have right now, yeah, and it's very difficult to basically access data very easily and work with it throughout the different systems, right? But because data silos are created, we still have different standards, yeah, when we talk to different machine vendors and system vendors, yeah. And the typical picture we have, and I'm 100% sure that all of you have seen this in some kind of variations, right? It's those point-to-point integrations which are created, yeah. And now when we talk about the unified namespace concept is, right, it's making it all clear and more easier structured, right? So basically, it's the bubble you see in the middle when we refer to this concept, how you say, Henning, yeah. And maybe jumping from here to you, Henning, yeah. If you have this unified namespace, why is it actually easier to work with data now? What's changing? Yeah?
Okay, first and foremost, the one slide before, this is really what we see when we go to customers in an early phase and look at the system landscape, which is there, the system that drive the manufacturing process, your ERP, MES, quality management, and whatnot, PLCs for of course, and every system is just connected wherever it's needed to bring the use cases alive that are necessary. And this makes it incredibly hard for the companies to build new stuff on top of that infrastructure. And the unified namespace helps in here. This was the last slide you brought up, to create one access point for the data. And then with the topic structure, you also make it quite easy to find certain data points, because usually what we do, and what I think what you should do, is that you build up your topic structure where you find your data points, for example, from a machine. You will organize this structure based on your organizational structure, because that's something a lot of people can understand. We saw different ideas out there, but I think this is a good approach if you start with that. Then, for example, as Stefan said, following ISA 95 equipment hierarchy, everyone can understand what's the enterprise name, what's the site name, area, line, cell. And even if people are looking at these data structures, and if they are not process experts, they will be able to know where data is coming from. So this is the first point. You make data accessible and identifiable. And then the next point is, which helps to create more value from the raw data, is that you enrich the data that you publish to the UNS. But this is maybe something we can touch upon later.
100%. Just one short question, because you both said, right, we work a lot with ISA 95, yeah, we see it everywhere. This is the only thing you see which are companies using to structure basically the organization for, or did you see like already other examples at customers?
Was a question for me, yes?
Yeah, to both of you.
This is what we usually start with, and then we adapt it to the customer's needs, because it really is a straightforward approach. Every company has a certain organizational hierarchy that you can follow. When sometimes you might have under a site, you might have different business units, and then you can model these business units in there. What we also saw is approaches where the colleagues were already thinking about how to structure unified namespace, and they came up with a location-based hierarchy. And this made total sense for the maintenance staff, because the colleagues from the maintenance department all knew each room, each production hall. They know that by heart, because they have been at the company for multiple years. But imagining someone onboarding and being at the company just for a couple of weeks, they won't find anything. and even people that are might not be located at the same site. Yeah, it's I think this is not the best approach.
Yeah, totally. There, in the end, yeah, and that is what we have to understand. It's a concept. So there is no universal standard for a unified namespace. It must fit the organization's hierarchy, and it needs to be tailored individually. So we see companies who already have other namespaces in place, like from an MES, for instance. Some use this structure then already as a base. And I think ISA 95 is a very good starting point because this terminology is well understood, as Henning said, throughout the organization. And in the end, what you want to make this data accessible and you want to make it tangible. Yeah, so you need really like a mental model for everyone who then will use it to like understand how to navigate through it, to really understand this whole structure. And this is actually the idea behind it. So what you want to have is like really a holistic view on where can I get data, how can I create the most value out of it.
Thanks, Stefan. And there's one question in the audience who's asking, is it possible to have multiple overlapping hierarchies, so views, in the unified namespace?
I'm not sure what the colleague means by overlapping. From my understanding, you can have them in parallel, and the different hierarchies can reference the same raw data points, for example. This is possible. There's always the question, is it worth the effort? Because let's take the example of the maintenance department I mentioned. If this location information is crucial for them, they could always put the location IDs, for example, in the metadata of the data objects, for example. But in general, everything is allowed and everything possible because the UNS is owned by the companies and they build it as they need it.
I agree, but I mean, like most probably like what we've seen as well, like in our discussions with you, is normally you align on some kind of like data model, right, to make work with data actually easier. So typically you say like based on ISA 95, for example, or I've seen some as well doing like or thinking about doing it based on the BOM, like bill of materials, as well as an approach. Yeah, I didn't see it was like one exotic approach. Yeah, but typically you would do this another view based on the use case level, where you would have then based or like on the asset layer level, that's how we've seen it, and everything based on the data model is normally like one approach. You have someone to align on, and as you said, maybe put in the IDs right within the data model, so you can easier work with. But the basic alignment is something which needs to happen. Yeah, maybe let's go on with the next question there. Like if we now as well, like in practice and from your understanding, if we have now, let's say, aligned on a data model in the company, is it difficult? Because from my understanding, it seems very difficult to. It's one thing to align on it and then start working, but then like keeping it, maintaining it, right? What are your experiences with that?
I think here it's important to really get a better understanding what you mean with data model, because right now we just spoke about the hierarchy, and then there's also the data modeling part to it. And maybe if we switch to the slides again. So this is what we just spoke about, the hierarchy levels: enterprise, site, area, line, and here work cell. And actually the data objects that you publish to these topics, this is where the music happens, because that's where the data is. And this could look like this, for example. This is something very close to something we built in our projects. Usually you have maybe an object with metadata. You could also put the metadata flat into one big object. That's really dependent on how you want to use it. But then what really brings the additional value to the raw data is the context that you have, and names, that you have engineering units, for example, set point values, and for example, a description. Imagine someone who really maybe a data analyst who never walked over the shop floor, and he's browsing the namespace and trying to understand what data he or she is looking at. And then the description might make sense as well. And not only for a data analyst, also for if you think about leveraging LLMs together with a unified namespace, then an attribute like the description gets really useful. So this is the data modeling part. This is the data modeling part, and I just wanted to make the point that it's really important to see these two levels, and the data modeling part is the harder part of building the UNS from my point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So the unified namespace is like a part of this like whole experience. Yeah, let's say. Actually, it's part of this data value chain, if you want, like that. Yeah. So the data chain, value chain, then in the end is a connectivity. So source and target systems. It's the uniform topic structure. What is the actual unified namespace? It is a data modeling, so aggregation, normalization of data. It is data sharing, the democratization of data. Yeah, that's what I said, making it accessible. Yeah, making it useful and usable. And it is the analysis for data-driven decision-making in the end, yeah, for instance, through a digital twin. Again, the UNS provides a structure, while the data models must be considered separately. It's important to understand that you need, beside the UNS concept, the technical solution in the end. And what you want to do is, maybe I can show that here. Yeah, you have a machine, like a punching machine. It comes with a certain protocol. You have a query in Modbus TCP, for instance. It gives you a certain kind of data, and you need, on the one hand, to map it into the UNS structure, and you need the payload to be formatted the same way, yeah, as you see it here. So here we have the MQTT topic. It's, I don't know, car factory, plant 1, press shop, machine 01 speed. And you have the payload to it, yeah, what actually the information is, and you can enrich it with context. And then in the end, because your shop floor doesn't consist of Modbus TCP machines, you have, for instance, here OPC-UA. You can have here HTTP REST, yeah, so an API call. What then still is converted into the same topic structure and into a same like output format, yeah. So, and that's actually where the beauty in the end lies in, yeah. So SQL, if it is SQL, if it is Kafka, it doesn't matter, yeah. But you need the technical solution to make actually use from the unified namespace.
And I think that's actually very. Just sorry, Henning, just for a second, because someone asked another question, yeah, and that plays perfectly into the question, yeah. If there's a recommendation for how deep we should define the topic structure, so the one you just saw before, Henning, on the left side, and then as well, and should we also define a generic payload? I think the second one is more or less what Stefan's right now presenting, yeah, with his JSON payload, as an example. But yeah, if you want to tackle the question again, please.
Stefan, you want to start?
Yeah, maybe I can start. So this is a very individual decision. Yeah. So of course it makes it easy to have a hierarchy what is not going like super deep down. Yeah, but it needs to be something what still is usable. And for the so it's a company individual decision. That's what we see at our customers as well. Yeah, so it differs from time to time. There are the recommendations from the ISA 95, and that is like always our starting point. Henning, how is it in your experience?
Yeah, I think you can go deeper. I haven't seen it going much deeper than the work cell. You could, if you look at the specific assets, you could subdivide assets even further. But yeah, so for example, if we have a work cell composed of multiple parts, you could then go deeper. But yeah, there's always a trade-off. And I think, yeah, as you said, starting with the basic ISA 95 is always a good starting point.
Actually, what I think is, if we because now we have here tree structure already in place. So you can really think of your folders on your hard drive. So it makes sense to a certain extent, to group data points in folders. And then there is a level where it gets very, very deep, but it is actually not adding any value. And this is like the topic structure deep drill you can avoid.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. But the second point of the question, I think, is just as important. Should you define a generic, for example, JSON payload? And I think the answer totally is yes, but it's not just one generic payload, but probably multiple payloads. And how you define these generic payloads really depends on what are the use cases that you want to build upon. Oftentimes we start, for example, with machine monitoring use cases. So the first thing is you would build a model for a machine state that represents a certain type of machinery. And even if the machines are slightly different, they should be similar enough so that they can be represented by the same machine state. And this is really the beautiful part about the unified namespace, that it abstracts away the heterogeneity on the shop floor, and the systems that kind of connect to the UNS and get their information from the UNS just see, well, there's machine states and the machines are running, they are not running, they are in a faulty state, and whatever you model into that, you can give more than just running or stopped into that. It really depends on the application you want to build.
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
if we stick exactly with what you just said, Henning, if there's a machine that's running, for example, and now, because referring to the next question someone asked here, so how could you actually, do you leverage like report by exception? So to avoid sending the same static data over and over, right? So always the same, or do you send all over the same data? So if you leverage that, I know it's a more technical question, we can pass that for later, but I would be interested here as well, and because there's someone else as well who like that question, and if yes, how do you address clients that subscribe the first time to the data and only see what changed?
I'm not sure if I'm getting the question right. So maybe Stefan will start, and then I will understand the question.
Yeah, maybe I can answer on how I understand it. So the question is, like how much data are you actually transmitting, and does it make sense to have the whole static data, what is not really changing? And here the answer would start with you shouldn't. Yeah, so you should have the IoT data that needs to update in a quick time. Keep that like slim, so that you have the scalability, because maybe you want to have a lot of data and you don't need the serial number of a machine transmitted through this message. So there you could more think of a data model catalog, what refers to the assets, where you have this like static data in, maybe asset administration shell based or whatever it is. This lookup could then be managed with enterprise asset management solutions, AWS Sideways, Siemens Industrial Information Hub, RISE, whatever. So where the reference to the UNS configurations and data historians can also be stored, for instance. That's how I understand the question. Hope I answered that.
Okay, I understand it differently. So the last one I see here is with regards to report by exception. Is that the one that you saw?
Yes.
So we leverage report by exception because we do not want to send data over and over again. So that's one of the main paradigm shifts also from instead of polling information over and over again to see if a value has changed, the clients that are connected to the unified namespace are publishing their state whenever it changes. And if the machine cannot do it itself, you would usually use a gateway, like for example Cybus Connect, where and then this connectivity tool will connect to the machine, make the polling for you, and just publish the state change to the unified namespace. So I hope that answers the question. And how to address clients that subscribe to the first time of the data and only see what changed. I'm not sure if I understand the second part, but usually maybe what we see for if a client subscribes, goes down, and connects back and wants to see what's the latest value, you can handle, for example, retained message. You can use retained messages, for example, to always get the latest state that was relevant for a specific machine, for example.
I think that very fully answers that. If not, I noted down the name here so we can have a follow-up discussion on this. Very interesting question. Maybe with a look on the time, would like to go a little bit more to the next question here with someone raised as well, and it's more about like this, like on the business perspective. And it was, hi, based on your experience, what is the cost and time needed to transform the spaghetti data flow, which we've seen before, yeah, to an unified namespace? What are your practical experiences there? And I think it's more towards you, Henning, here.
I really do not dare to put a price tag on that, because it totally depends on the company. And yeah, on so many factors. It depends on what tools are being used, what infrastructure is already present, how good the organizational setup is, and yeah, there really are a lot of topics influencing the cost. About time frame, I think with a good organizational setup, in 4 to 6 months, you can have a really good starting point for a unified namespace with the first use case even.
Let me pause there for a second. Yeah. So what do you mean if you say a good organizational setup? Yeah? That's something I think we discussed before as well. Like, is there any best practices, and like to both of you, Henning, Stefan, that you see currently in your customer base?
I'm not sure if there are official best practices. What from our experiences,
Yes.
what really is crucial is that you have a really close cooperation between the OT side and the IT side, and not just stating that we want to cooperate. That there needs to be a team formed with roles from IT and OT, and they need to work together on a daily basis. And this kind of core team should cover all roles necessary. There should be process experts. There should be IT experts that really know how to how the existing infrastructure works, and that can handle potential new tools, new applications, new infrastructure that needs to build up. You need machine experts that can help to get the data out of the machines, and that understand what data is there. And of course, you need stakeholders that actually are willing to spend money on such an endeavor. I mean, in the end, it will cost some money, and you need a budget for that.
Yeah, 100%. So we see the fastest progress in companies with a clear digitalization strategy, first of all. Yeah, actually, it makes sense to build a center of excellence there. So establish interdisciplinary teams like OT, IT, business side, use case owners. IT should act as a data enabler for driving forces in the data governance and implementation. That's what we see. That works pretty good. And the teams must have decision-making authority and a dedicated budget, so to act efficiently. And I would say what is very important is that it is co-designed. Yeah, so you need the collaboration. That's the key. Representatives from these functional areas must work together with the Center of Excellence as well. So it's really a team effort, because what you actually do is it's a cultural change, what you are actually striving for. So, and that is effort. Yeah. So foster strong relationships, business IT, so that they make joint decisions. And of course, they have to have a business mindset, collaboration with the business units to have a deep understanding of the business needs and business cases as well. But again, it needs to be a holistic view. It is not this one use case, but it is way, way more, because this is where the whole value of this whole initiative is in. So to get away from this spaghetti, one use case connects to the machines you need, and that's all. So, and you end up with a lot of chaos. You make it right and structured, and then this is like future proof.
Yeah,
Maybe
you
to
mentioned
add on that, yeah, please,
multiple,
Sunny, you go first.
multiple good points there. One thing I just want to underline is that you do not build a unified namespace just for one use case. You build it
Right.
to build multiple use cases on top of it, and to have it easier in the future. That's the whole reason why you make the whole effort in the first place. And maybe just to illustrate the best practices, I can give you the worst practice, or one example of bad practice. There was, I think, on a conference where that I visited. Someone, it was an open discussion round, and someone was I think he was from a digitalization team, and stating, yeah, well, how do you do that with bringing the use cases to the people on the shop floor? So in our digitalization team, we kind of foster our use cases like a digital plant, and then we hand it over to the people on the shop floor,
Mhm.
and it just dies.
Yes.
And so it was super funny to hear that, because he didn't make the connection to that it might be necessary to start fostering the plant together with the people on the shop floor, or to show them how to grow a plant. Just here's your little tiny plant, and take care of it. And that's a problem we see, luckily not too often, but we see it, that that it's driven from just from one side. This initiative is just driven from one side, and then the work gets just thrown over the fence to the other side. So if IT is driving the topic because they like the technology behind that, they think it's a great concept, and they might even start building up an infrastructure, and it can be the nicest infrastructure there is, then they throw it over the fence, but no one will use it because they don't understand anything about it, maybe.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
this is doomed to fail.
Yeah, to add
This
on
is
those
what
bad
everyone.
examples, maybe, yeah. Sorry, Stefan, jump in, yeah.
No worries.
I had one personal experience there as well when I worked for a while in the US for a manufacturer, yeah? And they were relocating production line and constructing a very new one. And we came down over there. We were German engineers back then, came over there, and we start asking the people, well, guys, we have the chance to do a new production line. Yeah, those are different production steps here. What would you recommend? How can we improve this? And they told us, you were the first guys actually in the last 5 years to come down and ask us, yeah, and which is exactly the point, yeah. So I think this collaboration thing, we see it everywhere, right, in the slides, yeah, IT/OT collaboration, but what does it really mean? And we like working together, yeah, being a team together, yeah, and as well not having, like you said it before, Stefan, like a head, also like a head organization, yeah, which is then kind of like imposing the use cases, yeah, to sites, but rather getting from each team, from the sites, the people forming a team together, and then getting the input for the use cases from the sites, right? That's what accelerates it, because you're solving like real problems, yeah. And last point, which we've seen there as well from our sales teams, yeah, is normally if you don't have the C-level buy-in, yeah, for what you do there, it will be very difficult, because most probably one of the first initiatives which will be scratched off once there are like cost cuttings and so on. So that's for me as well like a must-have, yeah. Okay, maybe then let's jump with some more questions here. But before we close this topic on kind of like organizational setups, Stefan, Henning, anything you would like to add, which is still missing here?
Yeah, not really missing, but maybe that was a bit. So what I would like to mention again. So the one thing is maybe two things. So the one thing is, yes, everyone loves it when there is a new setting and a setup coming, right? And it's just like poured over you. Then you accept it 100%. Not, yeah. And the thing is, the whole innovation, what can happen in the companies, the innovation potential that is in everyone's head. So you need to put them together. Yeah, it needs to be this collaborative approach, as I said. But then this is a second point. Having IT as the data enabler, having IT as people who know how data governance work, how accessibility, security needs to be tackled, that makes a lot of sense really to have them in this implementation part, and in not like in a necessarily in this decider position, but in a lead position, yeah, like going forward and saying, okay, this is the modern processes what we can adapt to, and that makes total sense. And this is where we see the big successes, yeah. So the IT, let's say, driven projects in collaboration with the organization and with a center of excellence built around that has the like biggest chances of being successful there.
Okay, then I would say with a viewpoint on the time, yeah, I would jump and go into the more or less like open question answers, because we still have a lot of questions open, yeah. And first of all, thanks to everyone for the questions, yeah. And I would like to take the remaining like 5 to 10 minutes and just go through the questions, as many as we can possibly tackle, yeah. And one of the first ones we had here is one thing I read about is the importance of versioning when building the unified namespace. Can you share best practices from your perspective? Does versioning, for example, usually happen in the payload or the topic name itself? It's a technical question. Yeah.
You can, it depends on how you want to handle it. You can do versioning in the topic name itself, but I think that you might get in trouble if you have consumers that are dependent on different versions, for example. So I would strive for doing it on the payload and build the payload backwards compatible, so that you can always quite easily attach new attributes. For example, if you see the need for them, taking stuff out is difficult. But I think it's not a big issue to to just leave stuff in there and maybe not fill it out. And it's not that common, because usually you only put stuff in there if you know that you will need it in the future.
Yeah, same answer actually. Yeah, so this discussion pops up whenever you want to build it up, and so putting this in the payload is more suitable. Actually, that's what we see. So the application in the end is not through the UNS topic structure having versioning, but having that then in the end in the payloads.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. I think that would be as well interesting question for our customer success colleagues who are like working this on a daily. Yeah. I will like remember the question, get back to you there. Next question we have here is, let me open this one. Sec. Do you have a suggested approach on how to best define your hierarchy or data model? So both things you showed before, Henning, in a way that it can be reused regardless of the industry type or process.
I think we spoke a lot about the hierarchy, and yeah, that should be answered, hopefully. The data model, yeah, well, there are a lot of initiatives that try to model data so that you have data models that work across industries and across companies, and we hardly see that working. Usually the companies are quite different and have different processes, different machines, different use cases that need different data. It makes sense to standardize these models for a company, maybe for a whole enterprise, but across businesses, I wouldn't dare to try to define a model. I can understand the wish to have that, but if you really want to help a company, or if you are in the position to define that yourself for your company, don't try to boil the ocean.
Right, 100%. So couldn't agree more. So I would always say be pragmatic. Don't overthink that. Otherwise, the stakeholders will stay in meeting rooms eating Danish butter cookies and drink coffee for ages without ever attempting to start. And even if they do, then the whole flexibility is actually missing. So you need a tool, a solution that is flexible enough to be adapted on the go, but pragmatic. Just start.
I think that's a very yeah. There you go.
I just wanted to. I think we want to say the same. This is really something, yeah, to live by. If you start with an initiative like that, be pragmatic and
Yes.
just start, and maybe your first model will will not work out as planned, and then redo it. It's a constant learning journey.
I think that's the perfect transition, yeah, based on the time. What's a pragmatic start, yeah? We have some more resources, yeah, for everyone who wants to take a look. Yeah, we will send them tomorrow in the follow-up as well. You'll receive an email with those with the slides there as well, yeah. But just short shout out. There's the Unified Namespace white paper, yeah, from Henning and the MaibornWolff team, yeah, which is worth a read. Definitely, it's a good start to get a general understanding and how to tackle it. Yeah, there will be next week actually at the Hannover Fair a demonstrator as well from Cybus, so from our team. So you can take a look at them if you want to have a short. A short tour or something. Let us know. Shoot us an email. And the last one, there's a Unified Namespace workshop coming up in May, right, which is for MaibornWolff and Onward Partners. Definitely recommend it there as well. Yeah, so make sure to look it up.
Definitely recommend it.
Yes.
If you want to learn everything about the Unified Namespace.
100%. Yeah. With that being said, I would like to thank everyone for the time, for the good questions. Really interactive. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks a lot to Stefan and Henning. And I would say last words to both of you, Stefan and then Henning, and then let's close it for today.
Yeah. So last words would be start your Unified Namespace.
Yeah. Thanks you guys. It was a lot of fun, and just can underline that. Just get started and try something out.
Thank you very much. That's for it for today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.